Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me right here on the Aaron Barker Show and the opportunity to be in your vehicle, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, henhouse, outhouse, or doghouse, wherever it is you may be listening to the Aaron Barker Show today. Grateful to have everyone with us. Broadcasting, of course, live over on Vocal. That's VOCL.com, vocal.com. Also on Rumble and on Facebook, YouTube, DLive. You can join us over there and join the chat as well and say good morning so that we know that you're there and we know that you are enjoying the program. All right, a lot of fun stuff to get into today. Wrong one. A lot of fun stuff to get into today. Going to be talking about a nice little blast from the past for me, and then also the great earthquake of 1988. Where were you if you were in the tri-state area, Northern Kentucky, Greater Cincinnati, Southeastern Indiana? Where were you during that time? Also, a nice toy review of the Ninja Turtle sewer that I used to play with. Unfortunately, not the real one. And a nostalgic movie review. That's going to be a blast. A lot of fun, hopefully for you today as we start off this Saturday morning. You're out doing your shopping, maybe returning some of those Christmas gifts. I'm not sure, but whatever it is that you're doing, I hope that you're having a blast, and I hope that you're being safe as well. So I have a question, because I came downstairs. I had to readjust. I did some here at the at my little studio, the area where I record here. I did some redecorating, I guess. I had my Christmas decorations up, and you don't see it. Actually, you could probably see it down here, right there. That is the tippy top of my little mini Christmas tree that was up here on my desk. I still have it back here, and it's still plugged in, okay? Over in the corner is our Christmas tree that is still plugged up and still shining brightly. First thing I turned on when I came downstairs was the Christmas tree. And all the Christmas decorations. Well, we have a Christmas tree upstairs as well, but we still have our decorations up. We don't have any decorations outside, maybe like some garland, not Christmas lights all around the house. But I wonder how many of you still have your Christmas decorations up, and how long is the appropriate time to leave your Christmas decorations up? Is it January 1? Is it December 26th? What is the date that you're like, okay, no more, you're now past the limit, you have exercised all of the patience of the neighborhood or your family or whomever it was, you have now kept your Christmas decorations up too long? Or maybe, because the way I like to look at it is, it's not up late or up too long. My Christmas decorations are up really early. Huh? Yeah. Does anybody else look at it like that? I know a guy who, and nowadays you have these really nice LED lights that you can install, and they're like seasonal lights. So you could use them just for exterior illumination, just like Art Griswold. But you could do, not Art, wasn't Art. Did they ever tell Clark's dad's name? Well, Clark Griswold's dad, just like Senior Griswold, and their exterior illumination. But you can have these LED lights that are up year-round, and you can use them seasonally. You can have them white, or you could do orange and black, or purple, and not black, but orange and purple, and the different colors for Halloween, and the red, white, and blue for your Memorial Day and your Veterans Day. And you can have, I guess, pink and pastel colors for Easter if you choose. But you can actually buy those, and they'll install those around your house. Back before people got savvy to that and turned it into a business model, I knew a guy who's my youth pastor and ministerial, I guess you could say he was my mentor. And he put Christmas lights up on his house, like the old-fashioned bulbs that were, and they were zigzagged across his roof. And he left them up year-round because he's like, I'm not climbing up there every year and taking these things down. So he was hip before hip was hip. He was the guy that was, that was living on the edge, the avant-garde, always within the church, right? Always on the cutting edge of societal change when you're in the church. But yeah, I look at it as having my Christmas decorations up really early, because I get started early. It's in January now. I don't know. I go through, it happens at Halloween and mainly at Christmas. Not so much at Thanksgiving, right? And I think the reason I go through this, and I call it my holiday morning, my Halloween morning or my Christmas morning, Mourning. I also cannot spell. I call it my Christmas morning or my Halloween morning because that holiday's gone for a year. You have this big buildup, when it comes to Halloween. You have all your decorations. They set out really early, not as early as you do Christmas decorations, but they set the Halloween up. You have your spirit Halloweens and your Halloween stores that, pop up all over the place. And they're always moving in different locations. So you have to find where that is going to be that year. So that's fun. And then you go and you stare at all the awesome decorations, the Halloween, the horror and all that. And the Friday the 13th and the Terrifier and Nightmare on Elm Street and all the different costumes and various costumes. And which, by the way, before I get too far, I'm gonna make a note because I have a question about that. And we'll make a note here. Okay. So you have all those spirit Halloween places that pop up in the different Halloween stores. You have to find those, and you get your decorations, etc. You put them up. But like after it's done, it's done. Like people they're like moving on. They're like Halloween, go, okay, good, done. We did that. Now we're moving on to Thanksgiving, and everybody plans for Thanksgiving. And then you move on to Christmas, and everybody's building up to Christmas. Like, that is the holiday. Growing up, it's like it was the quintessential holiday for all kids. It's just like Gene Shepard said. It's the holiday around which the entire kid world revolved. And you get to Christmas, and it just, you get your presents or whatever it is. You have your time with your family. And Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas are so close together that you get that family time, and it's like, oh, we're all close together, we're all tight knit, we're going to be best buddies, and then you get Thanksgiving to Christmas, and then you have the next time you see them, it's like the 4th of July or something like that. But the reason I guess I don't do it so much for Thanksgiving is because Thanksgiving is right there in the middle. So you've got Halloween and you're like, oh, well, I've got Thanksgiving. You're kind of going to Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving's over and you don't really have time to mourn Thanksgiving so much because you got your turkey and your dumplings and your mashed potatoes and, your sweet potato casserole, but you're looking forward to Christmas. And then after Christmas, there is really no huge holiday until if you're a Christian, you've got Easter, but you don't really do much for Easter. The next big holiday after that you'll see yourself like getting off of school or work for is probably maybe Memorial Day and then 4th of July. So your big holidays are not there anymore. So you're mourning that. And plus, I don't think it's so much the fact that it's the time off work. I think for me, it's the nostalgic factor that plays into Christmas. Because there's so much when you pull out your Christmas decorations, at least the way that we are. Well, my wife and I have our very first Christmas tree, and we bought that. It's like a 6-foot tall Christmas tree. It's probably 18 inches, maybe 12 inches in diameter. At one point, we bought that in its 2 pieces, and it's very, very simple to put together. And we put that up in our first apartment. We didn't have a star as we were decorating the tree. We bought our own ornaments. Our parents had given us some ornaments as well, and we were standing there decorating a Christmas tree, and we didn't have a tree topper for it. So since we didn't have a tree topper for it, I was wearing a Santa Claus hat, and I took my Santa Claus hat off and I just put it on top of the Christmas tree. And I was like, that'll do and we laughed about it, And for 25 years, that has been, going on 25 years. Next year will be 25 years. 25 years of Christmases, except for 3. The Santa hat was the Christmas tree topper for our Christmas tree, which people looked at as sacrilege. My dad almost had a cow over that because we put a Santa Claus hat on top of our Christmas tree rather than an angel. He did the same thing with my aunt because she had put a snowman on top of hers, and that was sacrilege. Just straight out of the Bible, you got to have an angel on top of your Christmas tree. But beyond the Christmas tree talk, because Christmas is over. See, I'm still just consumed with talking about Christmas trees and Christmas. The amount of time that you leave your Christmas decorations up does not indicate what type of person you are. It does not mean you're lazy if you leave them up. It does not mean you're a loser if you leave them up at all. It just means that you want to leave your Christmas decorations up for a little bit longer. But mine, as mentioned, my thing for Christmas, for the Christmas tree, one of my things, not set aside the colors and the season and the happiness and the joy and everything that you get from that. My big thing is that when I put up a Christmas tree, we pull out ornaments that have literally been around since I was born. My mom gave me ornaments that we have had on our Christmas tree growing up. When we moved out, she put us together like a little care package of Christmas tree ornaments that she gave to us. And they're very special. I could point them out to you on the tree right now. And there's several of them, and they have stories. And they go all the way back to the first ornament that I would always put on the tree, as far back as I can remember, the ceremony that surrounded it, all of that. So a big part of that is the nostalgic part for me. And I think it's really cool because even though we have those ornaments and even though we're going to pack those away and we're going to put them up until next year and all the decorations, etc., that really is some of those ornaments on our Christmas tree now are really some of the only actual physical ties I have back to my childhood. And I know that we all have that. There's some of us have, I know some people that clean out everything. Like they just they do spring cleaning once a week and they throw away everything. And then there are other people who hold on to stuff. And then there are other people through attrition or through moving or through just giving way like myself or through loss have lost certain things attached to their childhood. There was a person in our family whose house also burnt down, but his burnt down when he was like 13, 14 years old. And we were talking about it recently. And he said, the biggest thing for me is that I don't have a place to go back to. I don't have a childhood home. And he's like, pretty much his toys, et cetera. And everything that linked back to where he was like, if I go back to that city, there's nothing there. His mom, he lived in not temporary, but he lived in a trailer. And then when he moved out and moved away and went to college, his mom bought a house, and that house was not his childhood home. So he has no real sentimental ties to that. So he lost all of that. And I feel that because there were so many things that I lost also over the years, and especially in the fire. But this past week, actually last week, when I got off of when I got done doing the show, I sent a text and I was able to get something. My dad, probably back in the late 1980s, one day comes home from work and he has these two bundles of comic books, and they're bundled together with twine. And he was like, hey, a guy that I work with didn't want these and asked if I did. So I said, yeah. And he brought us home these 2 stacks of comic books. And there was about 80 issues there, 75 to 80 issues there. And it was Superboy and starring the Legion of Superheroes. And then the comic series eventually broke off into just the Legion of Superheroes. And those issues lasted up until the 80s. And just like any other kind of comic books, there were different reiterations and different storylines and changes, etc. But around the time that I went away to college, so about 26, 27 years ago, I went through a phase where I was, this really fanatical religious person where I didn't want to watch, the specific movies, and I didn't want to listen to specific music, and I didn't want to read certain articles and magazines. And I went through a phase where I honestly, and it hurts me, where I just got rid of a bunch of stuff. And one of those things that I did was I took those 2 bundles of comics and I asked a friend of mine, at the time it was, his younger brother. And it still is his younger brother. But I asked a buddy of mine, I was like, hey, do you think that he would like these comic books? And they were like, yeah, sure, he'll take them. And I tell you what, now I have since become friends with that young man that I'd given those to. We were just, because I was best friends with his brother, we just hang out and all that stuff. And since last year with the fire, and then this year with some health scares and in my immediate and extended family, I got even more sentimental than what I typically am. And I just finally, after thinking about this and ruminating on this, I just reached out to my friend and I was like, hey man, do you still have those comics that I gave you? And he was like, yeah, I do. And I said, are you interested in not having them anymore? Were you interested in and working on a deal to get him back. And he was like, yeah, sure. Now, this was back, I think I started texting him back in August of last year. And, got busy, and we were going back and forth, negotiating cost and all that stuff. And so finally back, I guess it was the last week or the week before, I'd asked him, I was like, hey, why don't, can we agree on a price? And we did. He was super cool about it. I got off the show last Saturday, and I texted him. I was like, hey, I have to be in town. Do you want to meet up so I can, get those back from you? And he was like, yeah, that's cool. So I was able to go, and I was going to show you a couple of these. I was able to meet up with him. Hold on a second. I want to be as careful as I can with these. I was able to meet up with him, and he pulls out this box and he gives it to me. And I tell you what, it was surreal, because after 26 years of not seeing these, but growing up with them, I remember where they used to sit in my room. I remember what box I used to keep them in once we took the twine off. I remember covers of these comic books. And when he gave them to me, I looked down in this box, and it was just this wave of emotion, this deep sense of attachment to a past that I thought was completely gone. And it was so incredible. I'm so grateful that he was willing to let those go. And I was so grateful that he was willing to allow me to acquire them again. And even though, some people, I actually paid him for them. And some people are like, well, why did you pay him? Well, because honestly, if I would have held on to those comic books, they would have been gone, like literally burned up, just like my other comic books that I had. My favorite growing up was Superman. And the first graphic novel I ever read was one of the greatest selling graphic novels of all time. And that was The Death of Superman. And I had that, and I had the subsequent as well, and they were all bagged. I had the Death of Superman graphic novel, and then I had all the issues, the majority, maybe not all, but the majority of the issues that followed, like the Man of Steel, the Son of Krypton, etc., the resurrections and the reincarnations of, and then the storyline that followed, who was the legitimate Superman, who was really, Superman. And I had all of those, and they were, as mentioned, in bags, but they're gone now. Had I held on to these Legion of Superheroes, then they would have also been gone. But I just want to show you a couple. They came loose, but what I did was I also bought boards and bags this week, so I started bagging them up. But here's one of them. This is the Legion of Superheroes. This is a reissue from let me get this here where you can see it. This is a reissue. They originally came out in the Action Comics, and it was a small series within the Action Comics, and that was in the late 50s. But then, because it was Superboy, as you can see, starring the Legion of Superheroes, so they weren't broken off. So what the Legion of Superheroes was, they're actually a group of teenage superheroes from the 30th century. And Superman was joined with them, and they would buzz him on a belt, and then he would fly through time to the 30th century and would help the Legion of Superheroes. And there were space battles, and there were, how it is with comic books. Just a bunch of incredible journeys and awesome storylines and such. But this is a reissue from the 70s. So 1973, this is issue number 197, and it is its own separate comic of that particular story. That's the way I believe that is, or that the way that I recount this. And that is, it's not in mint condition. It's obviously the binder over here the cover is actually in two pieces, but I wanted to get it in this bag because I didn't want it to be damaged anymore. And then, just some other ones, this is issue 190. No, this is issue 203. So there are some issues that are missing that they weren't lost over the years. I just didn't have them when I initially had them. But this is issue number 203. And then, but you can see, though, how awesome they are, the colors of these things, because they are from the 70s. They are, and the thing about them, they don't really have a high monetary value. They aren't super expensive. I think like the most, you get like $3-4 for one. Maybe I think a couple are like $7. Some are like $10, maybe $13. But you're talking about mint condition. or a very high rated. You're not talking about these condition. These are less than what you would find at your average comic book store. But yeah, so I took the time this week, and I was reading through some of them again as well. And my daughter called me a nerd, and I'm like over there bagging them and all that stuff. It's just really cool. And again, there's about 80 issues. I've got about 27 of them bagged and boarded, but it was just so awesome because, as mentioned, I'm on this journey to try to acquire as much from my childhood as I can. And I don't know why. I don't know why I'm so sentimental like this. I don't really know a huge amount of people in my family that are. I not that we're not sentimental in that we remember things and reminisce, but there's like this actual physical, when I think about the things that I have lost, is, specific toys and specific books and, specific, not necessarily clothing, but just I sometimes it's honestly like I physically hurt, like I'm uncomfortable thinking about these things that I lost, and it's unfortunate because I don't want to spend the rest of my life being tied down to this pain that not having nostalgia or the pain of losing these things has wrought. But I don't want to forget my past. And I'm thinking forward. I want to have these toys and this attachment to my past to kind of pass down to my grandkids whenever I have grandkids, and all of that. But yeah, I've got a small comic book collection now, including these, and I've got some compendiums of the Ninja Turtles and some other Superman stuff that I'm trying to acquire again. I did find the graphic novel, the Superman Death of Superman graphic novel. I found that online, so I have the digital copy, but I don't have the physical copy of it, which is a bummer. I do have, a couple of, this graphic novel. This is a Superman Doomsday, but this is a continuation of the story later on. This actually was a newer comic that came out with the continued story of that. And then I've got this is a collection. I've got 3 volumes of it, but this is the Ninja Turtles Ultimate Collection, and it goes back and collects certain comics from the original Ninja Turtles. Now, but they're reprints. They're nothing like the original, because those are worth some money if you have the original Ninja Turtle stuff. Anyway, I thought that was awesome because, as growing through this and looking back on my past and reminiscing, the fact that I was able to acquire these, and as I look through these, seeing the ones that I remember, the covers that I remember as a kid, it was just such a flash and a blast from the past. So awesome. And I remember sitting in that house, growing up in that house down in kind of up, but essentially I guess down in Ludlow, Kentucky, reading those comic books and just having those as part of my childhood. So I thought that was awesome. So as you go out there, I hope that everybody out there as well. Oh, I forgot to hit go live on Facebook. And I think I'm live over here on YouTube. But now I'm live over on Facebook. There we go. Glad I checked that out. That would have been unfortunate. Anyway, what else would I like to dive into today? How are those New Year's resolutions going for everybody? I know that I like to say life resolutions, but when you're having this conversation, you're talking to people about this, saying life resolutions as opposed to saying New Year's resolutions, sometimes it gets confusing. So in modern parlance, for those who like to use New Year's resolutions, excuse me. Oh, that was the question I wanted to ask as well. For Halloween, you have those inflatable costumes now, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I don't even know, like all kinds of them. You have the cowboys, and it looks like you're riding the dinosaur, and all of those various kind of inflatable Halloween costumes. Are those the equivalent of the inflatable Christmas decorations that you see out in front of people's houses now? Because in a way, is that I love the tackier the better for me when it comes to Christmas decorations. I like more sinister and more serious and more horror focused for Halloween. But when it comes to Christmas, be as tacky as you want to. I appreciate all Christmas decorations from extremely classy Victorian stuff all the way to vintage 1950s, 1940s fat bulbs, bubble lights, orange, green, green and red bold colors, all of that. I'm perfectly fine with as tacky as you can get on Christmas decorations. When it comes to the inflatables, I might have to recant a little bit of what I just said there, but when it comes to the inflatables, I am a little bit of the jury's still kind of out. Because, if you have one as an accent piece, but if your entire front yard is just covered with these inflatables, I don't know. But you're decorating for the holiday, you love it, go ahead. I probably wouldn't do it. But are the inflatable Halloween costumes to Halloween what the inflatable Christmas decorations are to that holiday? That's what I'm wondering. But I wanted to I wanted to throw that question out there because I thought it was an interesting question. I thought about that when I was thinking about all of the various Halloween decorations that I see when I go into Spirit Halloween and all of those places. I guess here it is. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay. Now, if you're from around this area, I don't know if you really if you are too much. If there are a lot of people that listen to this that I know, within my inner circle. But do you remember the Great Earthquake of 1988? This was a big thing that happened. But it just reminds me about that because you talk about New Year's resolutions, right? Life resolutions. People always have various New Year's resolutions. They want to be more organized. They want to be a better person. They want to spend more time with family. And but topping that list always is they want to exercise more. They want to get into shape. They want to eat healthier. Those are all quintessential type resolutions everyone feels all the time. And it always makes me think that a few years ago, something in my eye. A few years ago, my wife and I tried the forks over knives. And it was essentially where you were vegetarian, not necessarily vegan. You could go a vegan route if you wanted to. But it was essentially vegetarian. And I tell you, we had to stop doing it after a couple of weeks because it was so it was very difficult. It was very odoriferous, just to be honest with you, which is just a really nice way of saying stinky. It was rough, because you're eating a lot of roughage, and that typically makes you a little more on the gaseous side. But it threw me back to a memory of when I was a child. And I've talked about my childhood before, and I grew up in Ludlow, Kentucky. And in Ludlow, it wasn't like, this was not a metropolitan area. This was not an area where you were going to be, where it was super popular. There was not a nightlife in there. There were no really important venues to go to. You had a couple of small eat joints that were like your burger and ice cream kind of joints, and which sound incredible now. The big thing that Ludlow was known for, that we knew Ludlow for, is because we lived there, was the May Festival, which happened in May every year. And I think it was a week-long event. But it was the carnival rides, and you'd go there and you'd have your funnel cakes and your cotton candy, and then they had all the games set up where you threw the darts and you got your posters and you popped the balloons. I got a boatload of Iron Maiden and Motley Crue posters by doing the May Festival one year, and I got quite a bit of those, actually. And so Ludlow wasn't really a Cosmo kind of town. It wasn't super well known. But there was within there a social structure caste system that everybody knew where you stood, even though it wasn't, a high income. It was, lower middle class type area. And as a kid who is already on the outskirts, as far as, my weight put me on the outskirts, my church attendance put me on the outskirts. I wasn't very popular, not a very good looking kid. And if by the time the first day of kindergarten was over, your social place, your place on the social ladder was firmly ensconced, and there was no way you were getting off of that. No amount of toys or cool shoes or cool clothes. Not that we ever tried to get the cool shoes or the cool clothes. That was for the other kids. While the other kids were getting the Reebok pumps, we, from the Reebok store or the Nike outlet, we were getting the Spalding pumps from Kmart if we were lucky. And I'm not disparaging my childhood at all. I'm just simply saying that's what it was. Those things were not important. And growing up, now that I'm older, I look back and I'm like, I'm not paying, because my parents told me many times at that time, $45 for a pair of Reebok pumps or $50 or $60 for a pair of shoes was just ridiculously stupid. You walk into a shoe store now and it's shoes like $150. There's no way I'm paying $150 for something I put on my feet and walk the streets with. I'm not going to do it. Now, we're excluding work boots and things like that. But it kind of stuck with me, as far as, clothing and the money you spend on that kind of stuff, because that does not create your social status. That does not determine the kind of person that you are. However, when you're in school, it means everything. So if you don't have the right clothes, if you don't have the right shoes, if you don't have the right haircut, if you don't have the right look, and it's still the same today, but by the time you got done with your first day of kindergarten in Ludlow, you were firmly ensconced on the social ladder. Your place was solidified, and there was no moving up or down on that. I tried. K through fifth grade, I tried. It didn't matter what you did. It didn't matter who you talked to. You were just there, and you accepted it. And you know how there is in the caste system at school. You have the certain set of people that you're allowed to talk to. And that's who you're relegated to being friends with. And even in that group of people, I was still the outcast, because it was just like I wasn't going to get in with those. It was just something. And this is not a pity party. I'm just saying that if you have developed certain feelings for other people, like if I had a crush on a girl, there was this girl, Carrie Shores. Oh my gosh, she was blonde, beautiful, wavy hair, just the crush that the girl that all the guys had a crush on. And I remember that. And there was no getting to that level of girl, right? Because she wasn't on your caste system. She was several social layers up. Several rungs up on the social ladder. No way to reach that girl at all. But there was still the effort. There was still the desire. There was still the imagination. There was still the what if that filled the heart of a hopeful child. Well, I one day completely made sure that would never, ever happen. It was second grade. It was Mrs. Strom's class. And we were just doing our thing. We had some free time that day, and we were just hanging out, everybody doing their free time stuff. Some people were coloring. Some people were talking amongst themselves. Some people were working on their schoolwork. Well, I was reading a book that I had gotten from the bookshelf. I can't even remember what book it was, but I had gone to the bookshelf and I'd gotten this book, and I brought it over to my desk, and I was just pudgy finger flipping through the book, reading through it. And then all of a sudden, I started getting this rolling in my stomach. Not that I had to go number 2, but just this massive growth and continuing bubble of flatulence. It was starting to bubble up, and I knew, because I was experienced in I was experienced in the area of evacuating gas from my body. I knew this was going to be a massive one. It was going to be massive. My stomach was, was just starting to roll, and it was starting to build up, and you get that kind of bloated feeling. And I'm like, I've got to go to the bathroom to rip this out, or I'm not going to make it till the end of the day. Well, Mrs. Strom had a policy where you're not allowed to go to the bathroom unless you put your book back on the bookshelf. Now, I thought it was a silly policy because if the book is on my desk and I go to the restroom and then I come back to my desk, it's going to be there. Why do I have to put it back on the shelf, go to the restroom, come back, get it off the shelf, and put it back? I didn't understand the process. Nevertheless, I was a rule follower, and I needed to make sure that book was put on it because I didn't want to get in trouble. So my stomach was, starting to hurt because I really needed to rip one. But you know how it goes. It comes in waves. And it's the same if you any number two. Number one, no. Number two, if you got to rip one or if you got to drop one, whatever it is, it comes in waves. It'll build up and it'll flex. And then right when you think you're about to pop, it'll just all of a sudden relax. And the pain will go away. I was waiting for the ebb and the flow of that pain to subside. And I'm sitting there, sweat pouring off of my face. My hair was, the whatever hairstyle I had was starting to poof out more because my hair was just massive at that time. But my body was in distress. And I decided, all right, when that wave of pain went away and I knew that I was able to have some time to get to the bookshelf and then get to the restroom before the worst happened, I jumped up and moved towards the bookshelf. Now, over at the bookshelf was Carrie Shores, the girl I had the hots for at the time. And obviously, you see this young girl, your heart just starts to beat inside your chest, and you just get all worked up and like, oh, you forget everything. Your hands start getting clammy. And I'm already in a very distressful circumstance anyway. I didn't need the additional stress. But I saw her over there, and she was, picking out a book to read, and she had kind of got one, and then she had sat back and was kind of like looking through the book to determine which one she wanted to take to her desk. And I was like, I've got to get this book over. And as I walked over to the shelf and I had the book, and of course for me, and I had to bend over to put the book on the shelf. As I bent over to put the book on the shelf, and this all happened almost in slow-mo, I felt the pain and then a relief of the pain. But it wasn't the relief in the rolling away of relaxing. It was relief in the sense of evacuation. And I braced myself because the force of this pushed me towards the bookshelf. So I had to brace myself against the bookshelf. But I tell you, it sounded like a 75-member motorcycle gang fired up their Harley Davidsons all at once. The ground suddenly started to shake. The bookshelves were rocking back and forth, papers flying off desks behind me. The teacher was holding on for dear life to the lip of her desk as her feet were fluttering behind her. Door flew open, right? I was again bracing myself, shaking as this gas was evacuating from my rear area. And as I was shaking, I looked back behind me. Carrie was there. Her wavy hair was completely straight, horizontal, face back. Eyes, tears just poured out of her eyes as she's holding on, shaking. And it lasted 7.9 seconds, and it measured on the rectum scale. The scientists are still trying to find out. I've never told this story publicly. Scientists are trying to figure out what that was still to this day, nearly 30 years later. As the rumbling begins to subside, and everything begins to settle back to normal and the pressure stops, I turn around and all the papers in the room are just floating all over the place. The teacher is crawling up from behind her desk, hair all a mess. And kids were, picking up, helping other kids, administering first aid, cracks in the walls, chalkboards had fallen down, corkboards no more. And I look back at poor Carrie, and her face red from being so close to ground zero. And it was almost like Hiroshima. And her face was just discolored and red from the blast. Eyes as big as saucers as she stared at me, still shaking, from the shock. I attempted to recover myself and quickly ran to the restroom, slammed the door behind me and closed it with my back and just slid down to the floor, knowing that at that point, not only was I busted down farther on the social level and on the social ladder, but I'm pretty sure that I ruined all of my chances with the young Carrie Shores ever. I'm sure she still remembers it. I don't think I've spoken to her in probably 30 years. She was in such shock after that. The school went through massive repairs. They had to repair foundations and walls and collect. It was nobody could understand just exactly the force that happened. I don't know what brought it on though. So when my wife and I started that new diet, that Forks Over Knives diet, I thought maybe this isn't the best thing because I already am naturally gifted in the gaseous evacuationists category. Perhaps I ought not do to myself or to other people something so horrendous and horrible. I don't know. But I thought about that, and usually flatulence does come up in those thoughts as I have those in my mind. So, all right, folks. So I hope that your New Year's resolutions / life resolutions are working out well for you. And I also, here's to the kids that are out there trying to walk up or climb, I should say. Here's to the kids out there that are trying to climb the social ladder. When you get the opportunity, don't shit your bed. So anyway, let's get back to this. I was just, since I was down this level, this walk of nostalgia, I did come across a movie, and I watch this movie quite frequently. I don't know if if you remember this story or not, this movie. But there's a movie that released in like 1988, I believe, is when it came out. When it came out, 1986. It came out in 1986, and it is called The Wraith, and it stars Charlie Sheen. And again, I'm not sure if you remember this movie or not. It's not like this is, it was not a major blockbuster film. This was not a film that made a huge. It was not it was a small commercial success, I should say. And the movie was, although it was not a commercial success, it was very popular once it hit the video stores and the VHS. And there's several reasons that we'll talk about, but just in case you don't remember, just a second. Here it is right there. And it's actually considered, I think they consider it on IMDb, it's under car action, superhero, action, horror, romance, sci-fi, and a thriller. All of those categories. That's 7 categories that this movie has. But the movie it stars Charlie Sheen as one of his first appearances. It also has Randy Quaid in it, who needs no introduction, and the guy that you're seeing right there, that was Clint Howard. But there's another gentleman that's in this movie as well. Let me see if I can rewind it to show you here. This guy right there. That guy right there, his name is Nick Cassavetes. Now, for those of you who are not aware of this, Nick Cassavetes directed The Notebook. That's the guy in this movie. Now, he plays this ruthless gang leader that's a car gang, and they force people all to race, and then they take their pink slips from them. That's a big thing, obviously, back then with the muscle cars and all that stuff. But he is the director of The Notebook. Again, had Randy Quaid. You can see there it's got Clint Howard. Clint Howard was in role. He's all kinds of roles. He's one of those guys who his face. He's not been any major roles. I think he was the star in Ice Cream Man. Where he was a released mental patient that makes ice cream flavors with a really special ingredient, local children. He was in Terrifier 3. He was in The Waterboy, and just different movies like that. Sherilyn Fenn, you'll remember her because she was Ginger on Friends. She was the girl with the prosthetic leg that Joey accidentally threw in the fire. Then later on, she ended up dating Chandler, but dumped him because she discovered his third nipple. but that, all of that, but that's just kind of where it is. That those are the people that are in the movie, and it's a B movie. Again, minor commercial success, but essentially it's set in Arizona. This mysterious, as you can see there, this mysterious man spirit descends from the sky, manifests himself in a sports car, and then targets this local violent road racing gang of motorheads headed by a ruthless bully who'll do anything to get what he wants. Again, not a blockbuster, far from it, but it was a cult classic. I think after 21,000 reviews on IMDb, it's a 5.9. Tomato Meter has it at 33% for 15 reviews, and 62% for the Popcorn Meter, which has 5,000 plus ratings. But that is, I personally, it's one of the movies that, for me, it is peak nostalgia. Watching this movie, this is one of the movies that made me fall in love with that Southwest terrain in like Arizona, Colorado, Southeastern California, Utah, that kind of high desert, arid desert landscape. I always wanted to live out there as a kid in that area. And, but it was that and the house from Like Father, Like Son with Kirk Cameron and Dudley Moore. Spilt my coffee. Clean that up real quick. It is, though, for me, though, it's peak nostalgia. From not only from me as if you're watching it as a kid, but even just the aesthetic, because the real stars of this movie, even though it's got Charlie Sheen in it, even though it's got the director of The Notebook in it, the real star of this movie, I wonder, one of the things I believe is the real star of this movie is the Dodge M4S Turbo Interceptor. That was the car. It was a fake car. It wasn't a real car. It was a concept car. Now, I shouldn't say, let me rephrase that. It was a concept car. It never hit full manufacture production. It was never released, to the public, but it was made as a pace car. And it was made as a pace car. So this was the car in the movie that Charlie Sheen drove. Now, he didn't actually drive the real M4S. He drove like recreations of it because there was a lot of explosions and blowing up and all that stuff with it. But it was awesome. The other star of this movie is one that I wonder as well is the soundtrack. Because the soundtrack was also just, it was great. It had Ozzy Osbourne on it. It had, who else was on there? Motley Crue. Yeah. Billy Idol. Rip Ozzy Osbourne, by the way. It had Ozzy Osbourne. Rip to you, sir. Billy Idol. Motley Crue. And then, of course, so the soundtrack was great. And then there were some times when you were wondering, why aren't they actually playing the Ozzy and the Motley Crue and all of these while they're playing the stock music instead. But regardless, the soundtrack was fantastic. And then the totally 80s aesthetic that comes in this with the cars and the acting, of course, and then the effects and then the multi-shots of the same thing, but in different ways. Randy Quaid and also it just the whole thing was just for me peak nostalgia and a totally 1980s aesthetic. Awesome car. Really not the best acting out there. Definitely not going to win any Oscars, but certainly a cult classic and a fantastic movie. If you want to spend some time to watch it, you can find it on Amazon. You can also get it on Tubi. Tubi has it for free with ads. I think you can watch it on Fandango as well, free with ads. I look at that. I wonder, man, what a great movie that is, and what a peak. Again, what a peak for me, nostalgic movie and situation that is. And now that the more I get into this and the more I think about all of this nostalgia stuff and how much I miss, really, I guess maybe it's just I miss my childhood. I miss that time of innocence. I miss that time of formulation, of being able to think and imagine and have fun and just have all of these toys that surrounded you, to mix the universes where He-Man and Ninja Turtles, are working side by side with the Thundercats to defeat the evil forces of Cobra. It was so neat because none of those worlds It was like watching Toy Story. None of those worlds belong together on the screen. I mean, Rankin and Bass cartoons all together, but nothing tied them together. He-Man was not in the same universe as Thundercats, and definitely not in the same universe as G.I. Joe, which, by the way, I started watching G.I. Joe again this week, the original 80s cartoon. And the reason I did was because my wife and I and I'm going to admit this out there because I probably do a review of these shows, but let me go ahead and I'm again drinking from my dual art cups, my Art Crispy cup and my art cup. Now, the family bought me both of these, one for last year, one for the year. Coffee and water. Caffeine and hydration. So, my wife roped me into watching this show called One Tree Hill. It was like 2000, it was on from 2003. When was that show on? I might as well just show a picture of that as well, but I was going to show it. One Tree Hill was on it aired from 2003 to 2012. So One Tree Hill from 2003 to 2012. I don't ever remember ever hearing of this show. And here we are 14 years later, 13 years later, my wife starts watching this. There's 187 episodes, 9 seasons, right? We watched it. And it was high school drama is what it was. We watched that and we got done with it, and it was time with the wife, binge watching a show. If you couldn't think of something you wanted to watch, there was no movie you wanted to watch, you just wanted to relax and just binge in front of the TV, you watched One Tree Hill. And then after watching One Tree Hill, the show I wanted to watch, and I will readily admit this, I wanted to watch The OC. I remember when The OC came on. And the reason I wanted to watch that was because Peter Gallagher's character on there is so awesome. I love his character that he plays. He plays a guy named Sandy Cohen. And I thought it was, I really wanted to get back to watching that movie because of his character. What that show's about is, this public defender finds a kid that is in trouble. He's a troubled youth. He's in a bad part of town. And the public defender invites him to live with him. And he just happens to have married into a family that is multi-millionaire family. And they live in this massive multi-million-dollar home in Orange County, California. And this kid from Chino gets brought into this house, and he's given all of these opportunities he wouldn't have been able to be given. And it really just follows that path. But then there's a bunch of teenage drama. It lasted 4 seasons. It got canceled in the 4th because the writing started to tank, and it sucked. I mean, the first season was good. The second season, by the time you got maybe halfway through the second season, there was just a real drop in the ratings. And one of the things I disliked about it was you were taking these rich kids and you were trying to relate the problems of these ultra rich kids that live in this ultra rich part of the country to kids that are in poor parts of the country that don't have these opportunities. It just really, to me, it did not have the impact that I think that they wanted it to have. It was popular. A lot of people, I guess, watched it. The ratings were decent, but it got canceled because it really started to suck. One of the actresses wanted to leave the show, and then they made sure she left the show, and I won't tell you how that happened. Just in case you want to waste your time finding out, I will leave myself to not tell you exactly how that occurred. Let's see. Was that my chair that just did that? That wasn't me. Was it? Okay. But anyway, what did I get to talking about that? Oh, so we got done watching The OC, and my daughter had sent me some suggestions that her friends were like, hey, you all should watch this next. You all should do this next. And it was, I think they suggested watching Friday Night Lights. And although one of my favorite movies of all time is Varsity Blues, I don't think I could handle like 15 seasons of teenage drama again, right? I don't know, though. The jury's still out. But I was like, I need some explosions, I need some fighting, I need some dude stuff. So I turned on the original I turned on the original GI Joe cartoon, and immediately it was awesome. Things were blowing up. There were battles. There were jets flying. It was Cobra attacking the base. There was Duke and all. It was awesome. And I loved watching it. It was fantastic. I only got about, maybe 6-7 minutes into it, 6-7 minutes into it, because we ended up having to, we went hung out together as a family. Spend family time together. But then we ended up hanging out as a family. But again, I'm kind of living in that area. So here's this week. I want to do this toy review. For those of you that remember this, who out there remembers the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sewer playset? I'm going to do the Technodrome here soon. But the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sewer playset. This box, this picture of this box is an actual box, because you can see from the weathered portions of it there. But this is the Ninja Turtle playset. It has I'm going to go through the toy here, but just looking at that box, I love how, do they still do this? Anyway, I just love looking at these old boxes, how they had the big color action cartoon drawing here, like the rendering of it. And then down here, they're like, this is what it really looks like. That's actually what it really looks like. And so here we go. Here is the set on. Here is the set itself. Just wow. This was so incredible, because here is where for some reason they had an active toxic leak going on while they were living in these quarters right here. Like back here is their bunk area. You can see that. I wish you could see my mouse. But back here is the bunk area. This is where they sleep. This is where they practice. All of this area was supposed to be the massive turtle sewer that they actually lived in. But over here, active toxic waste leak. And you were supposed to, on this sewer grate here, you were supposed to pour like slime down into that sewer grate, and the slime would then drip down onto these stickers that you had, or down onto this play area there. And then you could get the turtles trapped in that area, and they could get the goo on them, or you could get Rocksteady Bebop down there, and they would get that on them as well. My parents were never ones to allow us to have toys that had goo involved or slime. But yeah, you would pour slime down that sewer grate, and it would then descend upon the unsuspecting turtle down at the bottom. These just sewer pipes, you could obviously put a turtle down there, and or a Foot Clan or Rocksteady and Bebop would climb through there, and that's how they would attack. And again, this is the living quarters and their television over there, and the periscope, which was actually a fire hydrant, and this moved around. I believe on the other side of that, there's a sticker that shows a landscape. Then you had your elevator. This was like a sewer grate type thing, and the elevator would allow you to bring the turtles down to this pad. That's how they got home. You had your power lines up here, these telephone poles. This line was like a trapeze. You could take this line right here, and you could lay it on top of this other one up here, and it would be like power lines, and the turtles would hold on to that, and you could use those to swing. So you'd pull it way back like a pendulum, and it would swing down and hit one of the other toys, one of the other enemies there, Foot Clan or whatnot. See if we get it closer. Another shot of the box there. And this is, of course, the back of the box. All the blimp. Man, I had bought my kids a blimp, and the actual blimp was separated. I didn't know this, but it was separated from the bottom half of that they had for their Ninja Turtles or 2012 Turtle toys or series toys. And we still have that blimp. It's somewhere. I know it made it through the fire because it was in the garage. And then, of course, the party wagon. Oh, so many toys I want to review here. And it just shows you a couple action shots there of these turtle toys, the original box as well. This is so incredible that somebody actually has the original box. And I don't know if this bothered you or not, but this had the studded sewer ball here. but it was a different color. What always bothered me was that it was different colors on the boxes than it was inside the box, or what the actual toy was inside. But obviously the box here, it shows you the cool box. Here are the instructions. My goodness, this person actually had the instructions and the assembly instructions for this. There was also a sewer map, I think, that was included into this, or included in this. And just a little bit more detail here. This was supposed to be their room back there, and you can also see how dimensional that was. We were supposed to be able to walk all the way back there, but the turtles would chill out on this little kind of strange half circle bed, and they would just chill with a mat that collected all of their toxic sludge from next door as it was leaking, an active toxic waste leak that was going on. And then just some various shots of that. Oh yeah, here's the handle. You would move this handle up and down, and this is what moved the elevator down to this pad, and it would make like a rip sound, like a burp sound as you did it. And you would move this handle, and you would lower the turtles down into that area, right? And just the cool detail that they put on this stuff. And it came in pieces. You could do assemble it. The base was there, and you could take it apart and put it in a box if you needed to. Just another shot there of the telephone poles and the various areas that you could play, and just the cool detail that they had on these type of toys back there. Here's a back shot. This was cardboard, or like some kind of laminated cardboard or laminated paper of some sort. This fence was. And you would take that fence would also come off, and you could put it back on and piece it on there. This is the back. That's the television screen. And I wonder, yeah, that was translucent, so you could see through the screen, and your face would pop up there. I forgot about that part, actually. It's one of the things I forgot about. That was see-through, so you could be on television, and that's what the steps were for there. So you could set your toys on that. Excuse me. You could set your toys on that, and then they could look through that screen right there. And it was actually just, a fake glass there, transparent glass. So this was transparent. And just another shot of the back. All these cool decals that you could put on yourself. Uncle Shredder wants you. Free turtle food. Call Mr. Bebop. Another shot there of just how three-dimensional and how cool this whole thing was. And just the function of all that, of the various views. There's the kitchen right there, which I guess they had to crawl up into that. They don't have Splinter's lair. I'm assuming it's all the way back there in the back. They don't have Splinter's bedroom. Just a really cool shot of the inside of there. That's that cool detail, man. And it's not like this is, oh my gosh, look at how this is like the Sistine Chapel, but just how cool this was. Just the little neat things that they included on there with these wires and all that stuff, and the nunchucks. I would put my nunchucks there in that area. Put Michelangelo's nunchucks. I would take Michelangelo's nunchucks and lay them on that to make it look like they were actually supposed to be there. But then there's just that shot there, man. And that was, for me, again, you talk about peak nostalgia, or just the overall impression, the overall feeling of joy and euphoria that you get from looking at these old toys and seeing them. This to me was peak childhood. I had all kinds of toys. My dad was, like me, in that he wanted to buy the toys for the kids and wanted to make sure they had all the really neat toys and stuff. So my dad, we had Marvel toys, Star Wars toys, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, GoBots, and all of those were just, my dad made sure that we had toys to play with. My mom too, of course, but my dad would, he was always with the toys and all that, making sure that we had the cool toys, because he loved that as well. Still does. He still has little Star Trek toys. Not toys, but like little Star Trek pieces up at his house. But anyway, this was like Ninja Turtles were my favorite, and I played with them all the time. I loved them. And just looking back on this just gives you those warm fuzzies and that feeling of creativity and imagination and just fun. It was just peak childhood and peak fun. Had a blast. It was so awesome doing that stuff. All right, let me do this here. I'm going to check. check the chat, yo. All right. Good morning, Deb. How are you? Your son-in-law loved and still loves Ninja Turtles. I do too. That's one of the things I kick myself about. And the reason I kick myself about it is because I didn't think that my girls would like Ninja Turtles, so I gave the toys away to some people, and they ended up being discarded, and it breaks my heart. But my daughters absolutely loved the Ninja Turtles. And although they were the newer generation, they watched the 2012 cartoon and on. That was really where their focus was, and it was, you know, those toys were awesome, and that series was fantastic as well. I did have some, unfortunately, again, I was kind of in this religious zealot area, and I was, you know, trying to prevent certain cartoons from being watched. Not that it was wrong. I think we did a good job protecting our kids from certain things. But there were some episodes in the Ninja Turtle ones that I didn't let them watch. But I would like to go back and rewatch the entire Turtle catalog from the very beginning. I don't know if I could do the Power Rangers one. Because by the time that the Ninja Turtles got to that, I think it was the Next Mutation. By the time that the Ninja Turtles got to the Next Mutation, I wasn't able to watch a lot of TV like that. But it was, to me, I wasn't a big Power Rangers fan. And I didn't particularly care for the Power Rangers, you know, the big puppets and all of that. I didn't, you know, and I know that if you liked Power Rangers, that's perfectly fine. It just wasn't my shtick. It just wasn't my thing. And when I saw that they did that to the Turtles, I was like, nah, I'm good. I mean, I was in a point in my life where I was working and, you know, doing other stuff, getting ready for college, etc. But I think I was. What year did that come out? That didn't come out like. The Next Mutation, 1998. Yeah, that was my senior year, May 15th of 1998. Oh, 97. It came out in September of 97, and the final episode was May of 98. 26 episodes. You know what? I'll probably watch it. I probably still will watch it because that's just what I do. That's just what I do. Let's see here. What else? Let's see. I bought an Easy Bake Oven for our granddaughters this Christmas. They were and are. Absolutely. Easy Bake Ovens, light, bright. A-Team. We played with A-Team all the time. Knight Rider was another huge one. I had Kit, the car, and watched the show. Airwolf was another one. I'm not sure if a lot of people out there remember the show Airwolf or not, but that was a big one that I watched, and a lot of fun there. All right, well, I tell you what, I hate to cut it short today, but I am going to leave you with wanting more. So do me a favor. Don't forget to head on over to aaronbarker.substack.com, and you can join in over there. Deb, I would suggest you go back and listen to the show as well. There was an interesting story. I hope that you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. But anyway, aaronbarker.substack.com is the website. You can go there and join the show. You can subscribe to it for free, or you can decide to become a monthly partner and subscribe to it there, or a founding brother. Not a founding brother, like a founding member, I think is what it's called. You become a founding member, and then that founding member will allow you to pay for certain things, to assist with the show and the growth of the show, etc. You can do that. Also, you can join me on Facebook, Vocal, that's VOCL.com. Also over on YouTube and Rumble. You can join me all over the place, all over those things. And again, just don't, if I could say something overarching about this, don't give up on things. I mean, I was able, as mentioned, to acquire these. I'll try to get it straight here. I was able to acquire these from my actual childhood, the legitimate same ones that I had as a kid. I really am just so blessed to be able to do that. But anyway, folks, don't let go of your dreams. Keep fighting for your dreams and enjoy your life and everything about it. And I will see you all next time. Have a great day, and thanks for joining.